Hello everyone and welcome to this video on factoring trinomials. To review a little bit, a trinomial is a polynomial with three terms. So we're asked to factor this trinomial here, and of course it does have three terms. This first term, 1 and 2 and 3. And if we think about factoring, remember that factors are things that multiply together to give us something else. So when we're asked to factor a trinomial, a quadratic like this, we're really looking for two things that multiply together to give us this trinomial. And really what we're going to find is that it's just two binomials that multiply together to give us this trinomial. Think about it like undoing FOIL. So when we FOIL things, we have two binomials. Remember, we multiply the first terms, the outside terms, inside last terms, combine like terms to give us a quadratic, or oftentimes a trinomial. So when we factor this, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to find two sets of binomials that when we multiply those binomials gives us the original. The factoring we're doing here only works when our leading coefficient, or our a term, is 1. So if you remember the standard quadratic expression, ax squared plus bx plus c, I'm talking about this a coefficient here has to be 1 in order to factor like this. So let's take a look. We want to think about this trinomial, or x squared minus 6x plus 8. We want to undo that. Well, how do we get this first term x squared? So if you remember, if you think about FOILing, well, when we multiply the first two terms together, it's x times x and gives us x squared. So when we're going to undo this, that's what's going to go in the front of our binomials, is x and x. So when we multiply x times x, it gives us x squared. So how do we figure out what the rest of these binomials are? So the way we do this is that we try to figure out what factors or what things multiply to give us c that when we add them give us this b term. So in this case, what two things multiply to give us 8, but when we add them give us negative 6? And so if we look over here, if we list our factors of 8, so we want to find two things that multiply to 8, or two factors of 8. Well, I know that 1 and 8 will multiply together to give us 8, but so will negative 1 and negative 8. Remember, negative times a negative is a positive. Well, we can also do 2 and 4, and negative 2 and negative 4. These are all of our factors of 8. But which of these add together to give us negative 6? And hopefully you can see that when we add negative 2 and negative 4, that will give us a negative 6. So two factors that multiply together to give us 8 is negative 2 times negative 4. And when we add them, give us this negative 6, this middle term. So we're just going to take those two factors and put them in here in the back ends of our binomials. And that gives us our fully factored form of this trinomial. So this is what this factor looks like. Okay? And if we want to check to make sure this is right, well, we can just multiply them back out by FOILing or using our distributive property. So when we multiply the first times the first, that gives us x squared. We multiply the outside times the outside, gives us negative 4x. Inside times inside gives us negative 2x. And the last times the last gives us a positive 8. Combining like terms makes this a negative 6x, giving us x squared minus 6x plus 8, which matches our original trinomial that we started with. So we know x minus 2 times x minus 4 is the correct factored form of this trinomial.